at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We gotta unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Thursday, October 3rd. I'm Dean Obeidallah, as always, hoping to be your MBFF. And as always, a lot to cover today. But a little reminder, because this is something that should be reminding our fellow Americans all the time. That as we speak, the Trump DOJ is arguing in federal court to end you and your family's coverage for pre-existing medical conditions, to no longer allow children on policy till they're 26, to arguing to allow insurers to go back to the old days when you get sick, they drop you when it's time to get renewed because they don't want to have to deal with the cost involved. And the whole list of all the benefits of the ACA. Right now, the Trump administration is in federal court arguing it should all go away. And it doesn't deserve media coverage every day because it's an ongoing lawsuit. But I just want to remind people, it doesn't matter if you're left or right or in the center, your family's health care is going to be hurt by Trump if they win this case. And because the Republicans have no alternative plan to give you coverage for pre-existing medical conditions, we're going to go back to the old days. It's going to be horrible for all of us. And yes, Trump lies all the time, even today, talking about health care. His lies, run-of-the-mill stuff, we call it out, that's life. This lie hurts you and your family. This is different. This hurts you and your family. If you have any pre-existing medical condition, whatever, you ever been treated for anything, if your child's on the policy to 26, gone, the list goes on. Putting caps back on insurance policies, annual and lifetime caps, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Charging a penalty to older people goes back, and all of that goes back thanks to Donald J. Trump. So let's hope they lose that lawsuit because they will never agree to what we would want as Democrats to ensure our fellow Americans are covered for this stuff because they don't care. They're just all about the insurance. So let's get back to the issue. The big issue is impeachment. Got to play a clip by Colbert. Colbert last night playing a clip from Donald Trump's one of the many unhinged things he did, but his press conference standing next to the president of Finland. Let's hear clip number 1, please.
Trump talked about how hard this impeachment inquiry has been on him as a president, the most powerful victim in the world.
We had the Mueller collusion delusion, okay? That went on for years. And that's finally done. Now I get 3 days of peace, and I'm walking into the United Nations, going to meet with the biggest leaders in the world, and I hear about the word impeachment. I said, what did I do now?
Well, it's good to know. It's good to know even you can't keep track of your crimes. But why? Way ahead of me.
Even his gas crime.
Here's my problem. Here's my problem with what he just said. Why did you get 3 days of peace? That's not fair. I haven't had a good night's sleep since you were elected.
I can share that feeling, and many of us can, very much so. So, he had a lot of other great jokes, but let's get into then Donald Trump, not a comedian, a dangerous human being, who today just doubles and triples down on wanting foreign interference. And to remind people, I want to again read from the Trump transcript, the one that he bragged about yesterday being exact. Every word is correct. And I imagine that's not fully true. There are probably words we are not seeing in the summary. It's not a transcript. On the front page of that so-called transcript, it says this is not verbatim. In any event, even in it is bad, and I just want to remind people what it says so we remind our friends and our co-workers. Because the battle right now is political. It's not legal. It's not in the ballot box. It's about convincing our fellow Americans who are in the middle, especially if they're center-right, that what Trump did deserves impeachment and removal. And the only way to do that, and for that to happen, is to get the base, at least some sliver, a big percentage, not a sliver, a big percentage of the GOP base to tell their senators or Republicans that we can't have this. You can have Mike Pence as president if you want, if he can withstand what's going to happen, and we'll get into that in a second. But he should be gone. So in his own words, He says to the Ukrainian president, I would like you to do us a favor, though. Then he asks a favor. Doesn't ask anything about our government. Doesn't ask about something like, doesn't couch it in terms of the United States, this is what we stand for. This is our demand for any country we give aid to. No, that's not what it's about. I would like you to do us a favor, though. And adds later, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son. That Biden stopped the prosecution. And a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. That's the words. Today, Donald Trump tried to do the equivalent of Russia, Are You Listening?, which he did in 2016. This time, it was Ukraine and China, if you're listening, because his new strategy is just to do it in the public so that his base can go, come on, it's not a crime. He's doing it in public. The problem is we already have the transcript. That's what a crime is. Here's clip number 2, Today Trump.
What exactly did you hope Zelensky would do about the Biden after your phone call? Exactly.
Well, I would think that if they were honest about it, they'd start a major investigation into the Bidens. It's a very simple answer. They should investigate the Bidens, because how does a company that's newly formed, and all these companies, if you look at, and by the way, likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine. So I would say that President Zelensky, if it were me, I would recommend that they start an investigation into the Bidens, because nobody has any doubt that they weren't crooked. That was a crooked deal, 100%. He had no knowledge of energy, didn't know the first thing about it. All of a sudden, he's getting $50,000 a month, plus a lot of other things. Nobody has any doubt. And they got rid of a prosecutor who was a very tough prosecutor. They got rid of him.
Apparently, Trump is running against Hunter Biden at this point. It's not Joe Biden. He's running against his son. He's tweeting about Hunter Biden all day today. So now he's running against Hunter Biden. I wish him the best with that. Hunter Biden will never be on the ballot. Joe Biden might be. In any event, this is absolute BS what he's saying. And you even had Mike Pence. Well, first of all, just so it's clear, just based on the transcript, Judge Napolitano on Fox News said it was a crime. I just want to remind people of that again. I might remind people every single day of this. Here's clip number 3.
The president admits that on a phone call with the president of Ukraine, he requested that the president of Ukraine investigate his 2020 political rival, Joe Biden. Is that a crime?
It is a crime for the president to solicit aid for his campaign from a foreign government.
So that would be that to which the president has admitted is in and of itself a crime.
Yes.
Boom. Thank you. Good night. That's it. But that didn't stop Mike Pence today from defending that crime. And here's Mike Pence, who's little by little, and I said yesterday, I didn't believe for a second he didn't know what was going on, because there's been 5 times he's publicly made incorrect statements and later said, I was just not informed. No, Mike Pence is, I'm going to go on a limb here. I don't have the evidence for this, but I have some evidence. I think Mike Pence is a criminal co-conspirator with Donald Trump. And here's Mike Pence today defending the phone call which Judge Napolitano on Fox News, a former judge, longtime lawyer, made clear was a crime. Here's Mike Pence defending the criminality of Donald Trump for the media. Clip 4.
I think the American people have a right to know if the Vice President of the United States or his family profited from his position as Vice President during the last administration. That's about looking backwards and understanding what really happened.
It is true. It is looking backwards. It's looking backwards at an event that happened in March 2016 in the heat of the 2020 campaign. It's a joke. You cannot with a straight face say it's not connected to the campaign. That's what makes it so problematic. And last night, Washington Post reported that Mike Pence was involved in the efforts to pressure the Ukrainian leader. He went to Europe. He met with the Ukrainian leader. We know that. There's video of it. There's transcript of it. And in the transcript, September 2nd, while in Europe, Mike Pence says, and he sat and I watched the whole press conference. Maybe we'll play some clips of it tomorrow with Zelensky. Talks about corruption over and over. And said, I will carry back to President Trump the progress that they're making the Ukraine on making a deal with corruption, with dealing with corruption in their country, said Mike Pence. Corruption is, in this case, investigating Joe Biden. Corruption in this case is getting that server that they believe the DNC server is there, and it wasn't Russians that were involved in attacking our elections, despite intelligence agencies saying it is, because Trump does not want it to be. For whatever reason, whatever business deal he wants to make with Russia, apparently. So you've got that. So Mike Pence, my friends, is implicated. But what I want to talk about here for a second, for those people who wonder, what does it matter if you ask a foreign leader or a foreign national for help? Why does it matter if someone gives you a contribution, a donation, if you're a foreign national? I want to go back to the founding of our country, because the premise of this nation was that we would not allow foreign nationals to have an impact in our election, because our elections are for Americans only. That's what it's about. But Donald Trump rejects that. Donald Trump rejects the very foundation of our nation's founding. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I go, the founders of this country made this a priority. I will read some of the actual stuff that from articles that they read, that they were involved with, from the Constitution to the Federalist Papers, which all talk about this. And right at the beginning, at the creation, the founding fathers, at the time of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, talked about this very issue. They knew foreign involvement in the U.S. elections posed an enormous threat to our sovereignty as a nation, especially then. It was a young nation, keep that in mind, and there weren't a lot of republics out there, a lot of monarchies. And they were so concerned that several features of the Constitution were specifically put in there to keep foreign interference out of our elections. One being that you have to be born in the United States to be president. That was part of it. So that no foreigner could come here. You wonder why that's in the Constitution. So no rich, wealthy British person could come here and buy their way and become president and then somehow give America back to the UK or just to the Great Britain at the time. That was one thing. The second is the Emoluments Clause, something we never talked about in modern day. But they put it in there. And the Emoluments Clause was the anti-corruption provision that prohibits government officials, the president specifically, from receiving anything of value from foreign governments without the consent of Congress. We never talked about that. Because of Trump, we have to, because you've got foreign governments staying at Trump properties, giving money to Trump directly through his hotels and his properties so that he can benefit from this. Also, we have a domestic emoluments clause, but that's different. This is for foreign interference. And the framers feared specifically that a president might also seek out foreign help. And they were very, very concerned about that. In fact, in what's known as the Federalist Papers, and I'm sure everyone's heard of the Federalist Papers, they were simply 85 letters written to the newspapers in 1787 to 1788 while the U.S. Constitution was on the verge of being ratified. They were letters written in support of ratifying the Constitution by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. And they urged ratification, but in this you often hear people cite the Federalist Papers. They were just letters to the editor, frankly. It's like I've written a lot of letters to the editor, and one day they'll be the Obidola Papers. But in one of these, specifically often cited, and attributed to Alexander Hamilton, it's written, "The desire of foreign powers to gain an improper ascendant in our councils was a source of corruption and one of the most deadly adversaries of a republican government." That's what they wrote. Very, very fearful of a government that's a republic by the people that would be taken over by foreign influence. John Adams wrote a letter saying, "As often as election happens, the danger of foreign influence recurs." Other founding fathers expressed this concern. George Washington, famously in his farewell address upon leaving the presidency, warned we must guard against the insidious wiles of foreign influence, adding the jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of republican government. And through time, our Congress has recognized that in modern day, hence the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So we know who is lobbying our government on behalf of a foreign entity and who's trying to who's going to sway our members of Congress, or even go in the media. If you're working for a foreign government, you have the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And of course, then, even more recently, the law that prohibited any contributions by foreign nationals. And for those who want to see it, it's 52 U.S. Code Section 3121. In it, it says, prohibition, it shall be unlawful for a foreign national, directly or indirectly, to make a contribution or donation of money or anything of value, or implied promise to provide anything of value. It also says, and this is what applies to Trump in this very statute, It is unlawful for a person to solicit, accept, or receive a contribution or donation, which is defined earlier by anything of value. There is no doubt opposition research is of value. There's no doubt that is. In fact, Robert Mueller, in his report, when talking about the kid, Trump Jr., meeting at Trump Tower to get dirt, he wrote about that. The United States has a compelling interest in limiting the participation of foreign citizens in activities of democratic self-government and thereby preventing foreign influence over the U.S. political process. It is this simple. Do you want a president to call foreign nations to do investigations on their political opponents in the middle of a campaign and allow a foreign government to interfere in our election by doing these investigations and giving what is something of value to the president? Or do you want American elections decided by U.S. citizens without any foreign input whatsoever? That's what it comes down to. If you want to disregard the framers of the Constitution, if you want to disregard Congress through the decades, and even disregard a federal election law, which makes it a crime to knowingly and willfully solicit, which is what Trump did. That's why it's a crime. That's why Judge Napolitano said it's a crime because Trump knowingly and willfully solicited help of a foreign national. He knows it's illegal. He knows it's a value. It's all over the Mueller report. He knows that. Is that what you want? And this is where we are right now. We've got Donald Trump, last election, famously saying, Russia, if you're listening. The Mueller report tells us in black and white, I will read, quote, the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome. And the Trump campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts. Close quotes. That is word for word from the Mueller report. That is not partisan spin. These are the words of Robert Mueller. The Russian government wanted Trump elected. They worked to that end. And the Trump campaign expected it would benefit electorally from the stolen data that Russia took. And he used it. And all he's trying to do is do this again. And he should not have gotten away with it. And Mueller should have indicted him. That's a different story. I'm not going to relitigate that. But the day after Robert Mueller testifies, July 24, 2019, literally the day after, Trump is on the phone, July 25th, asking the Ukrainian president to do exactly, but even more insidiously and more covertly, help my campaign. Get dirt on Joe Biden. There is no straight-faced argument to say this is not completely tied to the campaign. That's why Judge Napolitano would not destroy his credibility on Fox News for Donald Trump. Trump will come and go. Judge Napolitano and other legal experts will stay with their jobs. I encourage them all to be honest. When you get to the law, and sometimes I get some flack from my fellow professors talk about legal stuff, and I'm not being as passionate or spinning it the way you might want it because I'm giving you the law. I'm not going to ruin my credibility to defend anyone on our side if they're breaking the law. Nor am I going to exaggerate acts on the other side to make it a crime when it's not. In this case, Donald Trump committed a crime. Donald Trump committed a crime. Judge Napolitano is telling you that. I agree with him as a fellow lawyer. As a lawyer who appeared before Judge Napolitano when he was a judge in New Jersey, and he was a tough judge. And I told him that when I met him a couple times on his radio show. He didn't remember me, but we had a lot of mutual friends in Jersey. Tough judge, smart judge. It was a crime. There's no doubt. Mike Pence is now defending that crime. I was stunned by Mike Pence's comment today. I thought he was going to distance himself from Trump or be silent. Instead, he ran towards Trump. The only reason from a common sense point of view why that's happening is because Mike Pence is in trouble. Because Mike Pence knows at some point whatever is out there is going to come forward. We're going to see it. And we're going to find out Mike Pence is a co-conspirator. So instead of distancing himself, he's embracing Trump and hoping together the Republican-controlled Senate will say it's okay for Donald Trump to commit a crime. It's okay for Donald Trump to abuse power. It's okay for Donald Trump to get foreign help to try to help him win an election again. That's what Mike Pence is doing here. It is cold. It is calculated. And tomorrow we'll talk about it, the 25th Amendment, and how Speaker Pelosi could actually become President Pelosi before 2020. Long shot, but possible. Plausible. Not kidding you. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. So, let's talk. I'd love to hear from you. By the way, in the third hour, I'm really proud of a special. I went with Matt today. We went to the Veterans Administration here in the big facility in New York City. And we sat down with an administrator who was a former U.S. Marine and 2 doctors, and we're doing a whole hour special on the VA. And they shared with us in a nonpartisan, non-political, about the needs of veterans, what they're seeing there. Talking about from primary care to, we had the head of mental health and sat down with him and talked about the recent uptick in more suicides by veterans and why is that happening? What is going on? What is PTSD? What are the actual symptoms? We all know the term, but what are the symptoms we might even know of loved ones? And the stunning fact that he'll go through that 2/3 of the veterans who kill themselves are not getting treatment from the VA. And he makes, all of them make a plea that if you need help, if you're a veteran, or if you have a loved one who's a veteran, in the past you had problems with the VA, go back, give them a chance. They're there for you. That's in the 3rd hour. I'm really happy. I learned a great deal about it. And I hope you'll stay tuned for that or listen to it on demand if you can't hear it live. But let's take a break, come back. I want to hear, what do you think of Mike Pence now joining the Reindeer Games? Do you think Mike Pence is complicit in this criminally? And is that why he's embracing it? Or is there something else I could be missing? I'm all ears. And when you hear the whole history of why our founding fathers have a constitution which prohibits foreign interference and why we have laws passed, does it make it more compelling? Should Democrats be using some of that in their argument or no? I'm really curious what plays from just an optics and PR point of view. So give me a call, 866-997-4748. You're my guest right to the top of the hour. Be right back.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
I think Trump clips that they play on the media should come with a health warning saying that if you watch this, you'll get dumber.